The bunker near the Gaza border was thick with tension, young soldiers clutching rifles, their faces hardened by fear. In the silence, a soft, melodic whisper broke through, not Hebrew, but Tagalog. Eaton, a 20-year-old Israeli soldier, prayed quietly in the language of his childhood caregiver, Elena from the Philippines. Ama namin, sumasalangit ka, sambahin ang ngalan mo. The Lord's Prayer, spoken in Tagalog, became his shield against the darkness. His comrades watched, puzzled. Why would an Israeli soldier pray in a foreign tongue? Eaton wasn't searching for a new faith, he was reaching for the comfort of a memory, the love of the woman who raised him. In that cramped bunker, the Tagalog prayer became a melody of hope, a reminder that comfort can come from the most unexpected places. The soldiers listened, and for a moment, the war faded, replaced by the sound of shared humanity. The prayer was not about religion, but about connection, about finding peace in the echoes of love. Eaton's whispered words reminded them that even in war, there is room for grace. The soldiers, hardened by conflict, found themselves softened by a simple act of faith. In that moment, the bunker felt less like a battlefield and more like a sanctuary. The power of a caregiver's love, carried across continents and languages, became their quiet refuge, and for a brief time, hope was no longer rationed, it was shared. Why did these Filipino prayers resonate so deeply? It wasn't the words but the spirit behind them. Filipino faith is vibrant, resilient, a force shaped by hardship and community. For Eaton and his fellow soldiers, this faith was a revelation, a different kind of armor, one that protected the soul. The prayers spoke of trust, surrender, and strength found in connection, not isolation. Filipino culture taught them about kapwa, seeing yourself in others, and katatagan, resilience born from adversity. The soldiers saw in Eaton's stories a blueprint for survival. True strength comes from acknowledging vulnerability and leaning on each other. In the hyper-masculine world of the military, this was radical. The prayers weren't about dogma, but about hope, a living example of facing hardship with grace. For soldiers staring into the abyss, this was a promise. After the storm, the sun would rise again. Even in a battlefield, a seed of peace could be planted. The hope they found was not just in faith, but in the heart of a people who refused to give up. And that hope was exactly what they needed. Eaton's bond with Filipino resilience was forged in disaster. As a teen, he volunteered in Mindanao after a super typhoon, expecting despair, but finding hope. He saw families who'd lost everything sharing food, singing, and praying together by candlelight. Their faith was unwavering. They thanked God for survival, for neighbors, for being together. An elderly woman told Eaton, "The storm takes the house but not the home. The home is here," pointing to her heart and the community. Eaton learned resilience wasn't about unbreakable walls, but unbreakable community, bayanihan, the spirit of unity. Years later, in the bunker, these memories returned. The fear he felt was no different from what the villagers had faced. If they could sing through disaster, so could he. He carried the lessons of Mindanao into conflict. True strength is found not in what you have, but in what you share. The spirit of Bayanihan became his guide. In the heart of war, he remembered the songs, the prayers, and the hope of Mindanao. That hope became his own, and it was hope he could pass on. Eaton's private prayer soon blossomed into something bigger. Word spread, and Filipino caregivers and workers from nearby kibbutzim arrived at the barracks, bringing adobo and pancit. They came not as strangers, but as family, offering food, comfort, and prayer. Soldiers and workers both far from home shared meals and stories, finding common ground in vulnerability. Maria, a Filipino woman, led a rosary. Most soldiers simply listened, comforted by the ritual. These gatherings grew, becoming a sanctuary of laughter, shared songs, and quiet prayer. The barracks, once defined by conflict, was transformed by faith and food. Soldiers taught Hebrew songs. Filipinos shared Tagalog hymns. Traditions and holidays were exchanged, building bridges where none existed before. For a few hours each week, the barracks became a place of hope. Food and faith united them, dissolving the boundaries of war. In that space, they were simply people, seeking comfort together. This was never about conversion. No one was asked to abandon their beliefs. The Filipino workers weren't missionaries, just neighbors sharing their source of strength. Their prayers for peace were universal, offered as a gift with no strings attached. Soldiers received this gift with gratitude, seeing the workers as people with deep faith and resilience. The workers, in turn, saw past the uniforms to the young men beneath, boys missing home, carrying heavy burdens. Empathy became the true miracle of the barracks, a quiet rebellion against the dehumanizing nature of war. In these gatherings, there was only us, soldiers and civilians, Israelis and Filipinos, Jews and Christians. Empathy became their shared language, more powerful than any weapon. Filipino prayers gave soldiers a new vocabulary for hope and perseverance. It wasn't about replacing traditions, but enriching them. Their identities expanded, hearts opened. In that openness, they discovered the infinite capacity for connection. At first, these gatherings were secret, feared as a breach of discipline, but word reached Rabbi Benzion, the unit's chaplain, who came to observe. He saw not a threat, but a beautiful expression of mutual respect and shared humanity. Afterward, he told Eaton, "This is a mitzvah, a holy act. Finding common ground and kindness," he explained, "is a core tenet of Judaism." With the rabbi's blessing, the gatherings became officially recognized. The commanding general noticed the change. Soldiers were calmer, more resilient. He gave his own approval, and the military began exploring cross-cultural resilience workshops. What began as a whispered prayer now had the blessing of both rabbi and general. The small sanctuary of hope was now a valued part of unit life. Faith and empathy had become a source of strength, not a distraction. The power of a simple prayer had changed everything. 2 years later, in peace, the story came full circle. Eaton, former soldiers, and Filipino friends traveled to Mindanao, returning not as volunteers, but as family. The villagers remembered Eaton, welcoming everyone with open arms and a feast. They shared stories of their own storm, of conflict, fear, and the hope that carried them through. The prayers from Mindanao, carried to a bunker near Gaza, had shielded their souls. That night, under the stars, Hebrew psalms blended with Tagalog hymns in a shared prayer for peace. Cultures harmonized, united by a journey of empathy and hope. They were no longer just Israelis or Filipinos, soldiers or civilians. They were a community. The lesson was clear. True strength is the courage to share vulnerability. True resilience is woven from community. Hope is found in unexpected places, in the wisdom of strangers. By reaching across divides, sharing stories and prayers, they discovered the most powerful truth. We are all in this together. In that simple fact, there is endless hope. And the circle of hope was complete.